Hi everyone, I just wanted to do a video on using AI to manage IT vendor spending or really any kind of vendor spending. My focus obviously is voice and data, telecom services, and what I've seen is that there's a lot you can do with AI, but I think there's a couple big concerns. One concern, of course, obviously is what happens to all the data. But let's say you're not worried about that. You're not worried about the data getting out and somehow being used. One of the big topics is really garbage in, garbage out. So a lot of telecom bills and other vendor bills don't contain all the information you need in order to manage vendor spending. So that's really one of the big problems. And on top of that, there's also process questions. So think about it from the beginning. So how are you gonna use AI to accomplish anything? So let's say you could think, okay, let's just grab a bunch of bills, throw it in AI, and it'll somehow solve my problems. But that's not really true. What you need to do is you want to actually save money. You want to reduce costs. You want to actually manage your spending. So I haven't seen any solutions which do all of the following. I think what you'd want ideally is a system which comes in and grabs all your bills, but then it also grabs all your contracts. But then it also goes through the bills, identifies what data is missing, and asks for that data. And it would have to probably get that data from vendor billing portals. But then when that data is missing as well, it would then have to create some sort of requests for the vendors to provide the data which is needed. So that would be the first step. So you need to get all the data, AI to automatically gather all the data. And then the next problem is, well, what's it going to do? Is it just going to give you a bunch of task lists? Actually, there's actually another problem before that, though, which is why are you buying all these products? What's the point? So that's something which AI doesn't really know. Now, it might be able to guess that. It might be able to look at usage patterns and patterns of all the things that you're buying and say, hey, it looks like you're buying all these things for this reason, but here's some anomalies which don't really fit the pattern of someone who's buying with this intentionality. So maybe you should think about, not buying these things, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of, I think, intent data, which it would just have to kind of make up, and but so you definitely need a human to come in and take a look and say, okay, yeah, this is why we're buying this is why we're buying that. And yeah, I could ask a lot of good questions and get that information from you. But most people, it's all kind of tacit knowledge, and it's in the organization, and you have to actually talk to people to find out, why are all these services being bought. So let's say, for the sake of argument, you get all that set up, you get a full inventory of data, and you have a good understanding of why you're buying everything. Then the AI would have to go out and come up with some really good cost savings ideas, and then would then have to run those cost savings ideas by individual humans. So let's say it could, I don't know, send an email or something like that. But some sort of human interaction is going to be necessary. So, and also, since in cost management you are talking typically about changing something. And usually that change is just getting rid of unused services. We have to verify they're actually unused. So you really need some human interaction to talk to the managers to make sure that everything makes sense and you're not doing anything crazy, which is going to affect things. So let's say you get all that done. Then what happens next is you get a bunch of proposals sent out to people, and then those decision makers make decisions and say, yes, we'd like these things done in terms of getting rid of services and right sizing things. You could then come up with a bunch of billing error proposals and a bunch of ideas for how to renegotiate prices and get better discounts. But the problem is now you have to then implement those things. So you could definitely try to have an AI which primarily creates a bunch of emails and communications and tries to do that. At some point, it might be possible to be able to make phone calls and talk to people and track people down. I think there's definitely some potential there, but I think it's really an AI's, as you can see, I think already is really kind of an augmentation tool at this point for managing vendor spending. So let's go ahead and continue through the thought experiment. So if you had a really good system which kind of helped you follow up. What it would do is it would create kind of communications and tell you this is what you need to tell the vendors, and once you get in touch with them, you could then have something in writing. You could then send them to memorialize your conversations. That would certainly be super helpful. But you're still doing a ton of work. The human's doing a ton of work interacting with vendors every step of the way. And then what happens is you've submitted all the changes which you want, and hopefully the vendors have agreed to it. They've agreed to update the pricing or get rid of the services. Then what you have to do is you then have to then follow through. So AI could be super helpful here, where it could track and say, okay, have we heard from the vendor? Have they done it at the work? And then the AI could automatically read the next month's bill and let you know how things are going with that bill, what's fixed, what wasn't fixed. And then it could then create additional communication to send to the vendor and say, hey, you need to fix this. Please take care of all these things. And then it could then document the savings once everything is implemented. So there is definitely, I think, a role there, but typically, I think when a lot of people think of AI, they're thinking of like, oh, it's just going to go in and find a bunch of savings by reading the bills, and but then we're all done. And it's really not that simple at the moment. As we said, there's a lot of data which is needed besides what's in the bills. And then on top of that, there's a whole process question, which I think AI can help, but I haven't seen any AI solutions which go through all these steps. And a lot of times what you end up seeing is something which just gives you a bunch of new tasks to do, and that's not really helpful. I've found most organizations, they don't have time to do the tasks which they do have and the tasks which they know about around cost management. So that's why when we come in, we do all the work for our clients, and it's like adding another person to your team. And at some point, AI might be there where it's like adding another person to your team. But until then, we're planning on helping people, so feel free to reach out. I'm Anders Mikkelsen on LinkedIn, and I work for Berlin Pacific. Look forward to talking to you. Bye-bye.